I'd like to call the August 2nd Union County Planning Board to order. Ask you to please take a look at your agenda for additions, deletions to the agenda, and ask for approval of the agenda when ready.
I move to approve the agenda.
Motion's been made to approve the agenda. All those got a second? Seconded by Sean. Sorry, I didn't call for a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Thank you. You have also were sent the minutes of the July 14th meeting.
There was one item I did want to point out. There was a typo on the page where it talks about item number 4. It would be the, I believe it's the first page. That should have been June 7th, 2016 and not July 14th. That was just a typo. Just want to make sure you're aware of that.
That change has been made then?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any other concerns or questions about the minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, with the correction that Brian made, the minutes are now approved. Item number 5 on the agenda is the presentation of the Union County Critical Intersection Analysis.
Yes, sir. I'll be pretty casual about it. I want to talk a little bit about the study we've been going through this past year, kind of at a higher level, just tell you kind of where we were and how we got there, kind of what the purpose of it is, and then go through some of the locations where we've done some little more analysis and have some suggested improvements at those locations. The project itself was result of a couple of things. One, the county really didn't have kind of an inventory, if you will, of these, what I call these kind of these smaller projects that give you, big bang for not a whole lot of money as far as transportation dollars are concerned anyway. And when you go to get projects like this funded, no matter which avenue you take, typically you need to have a little information. You don't just go and say, I've got an intersection. That intersection doesn't work because we don't like it. Do something about it. If you can go to the state or go to the local NPO or whoever it is that's got the money, and you can identify the kind of improvements that's needed, a pretty good cost estimate, what's going to be done, why you're doing it, and with some specificity to it, then you got a much better chance of getting those things funded, at least to the next step, which would be the actual design of the project. So, the county pursued PL planning funds from the Metropolitan Planning Organization last year, and those funds require a 20% match. This project was approximately $100,000 consultant study, and so the county basically pays it all up front and gets reimbursed 80% of those funds. And that's kind of how it came about to be. So we started the project early this year, late last year, and put together more or less a study team made up of staff from invited staff from all of the towns to participate on that study committee, and the school staff as well. And we basically requested that they submit locations that they knew that they had some issues with, and intersections and or short segments that they thought needed to be looked at and some improvements made. And so we got approximately 66 locations throughout the county, intersections and some small segments as well, that those folks asked us to look at. In addition to that, we got a list of projects from the NCDOT as well. And that's what the map is before you right here. There's, like I say, about 66 locations that were identified by various staff that we were asked to look at. And So we needed to narrow that down because the scope of the study and the funds available were only going to allow us to do 15 of these projects, which is still a lot if you talk about going and getting funded. So we're happy if we can get 1 or 2 funded. But we were going to do 15 analysis of these intersections. So what we did is we looked at accident locations based on NCDOT's accident data for the last 4 years. We looked at a very high level, levels of service based on projected traffic volumes through those particular locations and determine the levels of service that were available. And we used that to kind of do our first kind of a call of the list to get to where, to get to that 15. In addition to that, we looked at some of these locations, we've looked at before. In the transportation plan for the county, for example, Highway 218, Millboro Road, we've looked at that intersection before. We've got a conceptual design ready for that. Some of the intersections on here that either a municipality suggested or maybe the school suggested, NCDOT already had a concept and design, already had done analysis. So for those locations, even though they might have been a high accident location, that information's already there. So we didn't need to do that over again. So those kind of locations we set aside. So that may be a question that comes to mind. Why didn't you look at this one? This intersection's a mess. It's either because there's already a concept already identified for, and so we just didn't want to do it again. So we were trying to do new projects. We were also trying to spread it around somewhat geographically throughout the county, just to be fair, for lack of a better word, I guess. But we didn't want to just pick anything. We wanted to make sure it had some reason to look at it. So we narrowed that down further. And if you will bear with me, what I've got up on the screen is actual pages out of the final document, which is this document right here. I tried to pull what I wanted and put it on PowerPoint, but for whatever reason it's real fuzzy, so I'm gonna have to go through the document to show you what I want to show you. Let me kind of skip through some things. This is where we narrowed down to the list of basically 15 locations that we did some analysis on. And you'll see that they're fairly spread throughout the county. One up in Fairview, Marshall's got one. I think 10 out of the 14 municipalities actually have a project identified within their town limits. The papers I gave you, I think that are before you, one is going to give you a kind of a synopsis of all the different locations and what's being proposed. And the other is a list of the project sheets of these locations. It shows the existing conditions and it shows you what the improvements will be. And I wanted to go through a lot of those just to kind of talk about the intersections that we did look at in detail and let you know kind of where they are and what we're suggesting. And then I'll talk a little bit about how things do get funded, or mostly in Union County's case, don't get funded, and maybe how they could be in the future. So, and just stop me anytime you guys, something comes to mind, you want to ask a question. There's just a few folks here, so again.
Yeah, before you get going, so what are these projects, the hope to complete these projects? At what time frame are you looking at, or?
Well, at this level, we're not looking at any time frame. These projects, we want to be ready when there's a call for projects to be submitted. The NPO, who does transportation planning in this region, which we're a part of, has control of some funds. And we want to be in a position to submit a project, to be able to justify it, because they don't just say, okay, well, we'll take that project. They want to see justification. They want to see potential cost estimates. They want to see what you're taking it from and what it will become once you make the improvements. But there's a lot of things that go into the analysis of what kind of priority will be given. So that's what we're trying to kind of tee it up. So when those opportunities come along, we've done some of the work already, and we can submit projects with some, at least some level of specificity of what needs to be done, and as opposed to something that's kind of wide open.
How often does that come up? I mean, how often?
There was a call for projects that occurred just recently, and we actually took some of these projects and submitted them prior to we were even completed. And there were other projects that were submitted as well by the state. And I'm talking about Union County, Mecklenburg County, and Iredell County, which is part of that group. And we got one project funded out of it, which is in Indian Trail. And the MPO actually makes the decision on that particular set of money that they have. 50 million is what they've got, this program it through 2021. Following that call, there will be another call for projects in the winter after the state's transportation improvement program comes out. And there'll be so the projects that didn't get funded in that first call will remain in the list, and others will be added as the municipalities and the state wants to add to that list. So, and then the remaining, I think it's 20-something billion will be allocated at that time. Following that, every 2 years they'll probably have another call for projects to allocate. They get $16 million a year in that DA fund that I'm talking about. So my guess is they're going to have a call probably every 2 years, and then we're talking about projects that would be funded like 21, 22, further out.
Right.
But even these kind of projects, some of them not necessarily, but most of these projects, you need about a 5-year lead time. I mean, transportation projects just take a long time. They just do. And these are the quickest kind, but they still take a while. By the time you go through federal regulations and you're using federal money, so there's a lot of hoops to jump through. You got to make sure your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, or you can lose the funds, and you actually have to pay funds back if you don't do it correctly. So it just takes a long time. I don't know if I'll let Blackburn answer your question or not.
No, it did answer the question. Will we be asked to rank the projects, or how?
No, we've at least on the staff level, we decided, and when we put this document together, is that it doesn't have a priority to it. They're all projects that need to be done. And for instance, on the DA funds I just mentioned, there is a 20% match required on those DA funds. So this is just this will be available to all municipalities. County at this point in time doesn't really have any interest, I don't think. And, although they do it finally, they used to even have the ability to, but now they can actually participate in roadway projects if they want to. Not too many, I don't know any county that has, but they have that authority now. They used to not.
When will the municipalities have that book?
They will.
When?
When we get it to them. But all our study members have it, and it's online already, actually. So it's available, and they have that information there from which to pull from to put that stuff together.
We haven't presented it to the commissioners yet, so we really want to present it to you guys and to the commissioners, and then we're going to try. It's out there, but it hadn't been officially delivered.
Okay.
And, John, as far as you're concerned, Dennis is very active in that role from Microsoft, so he's very familiar with it. So what I was getting at is that since there's a 20% match, if the county's going to submit something, and what I've done is work with NCDOT, and they'll do the match at 20% if they like the project, if they want to do it. In the municipalities, it would be the municipality would submit it, they would be the person to provide or the entity to provide that 20% match, and that's how you can get things funded. And what we were talking about a little earlier, Chris, was that in the formula that the MPO was looking at in ranking these projects, one of the criteria was how much local match was being applied. And I'll get it, I'm not sure if I'm getting it exactly correct, but if anything above, I think it was 25% of the project, got you an extra point. Higher kind of kept going. So if the town is willing to, step up to the plate and put a few more dollars into it, they can elevate the score and perhaps the priority of the project and have a better chance of getting funded.
So I guess just to reiterate what you were just saying is, if a town wishes to engage in trying to improve the intersection that's within its borders and jurisdiction, it could certainly bump up the score and the time frame to do it simply by allocating funds to it.
Right, so when the call for projects came and they submitted a project, they would have to submit that and have some kind of verification, we're going to actually put in whatever the amount is, 30%, 25%.
Okay.
So they have to put in at least 20 for that, but you don't get any points for that other than the fact that it's on the list. So that's kind of how that works. Down to this thing like this, but this is what you've got in front of you. And I think this is probably gonna be the best place to kind of start with the project, the way to look at them both ways. There's bigger maps in here that have each individual piece on it, but maybe I'll go like, you guys got this already in front of you, but it's gonna be in the same order. Let me get down to that. Okay, this is existing conditions. One of the first intersections we looked at least first on this list, is the intersection of Chestnut and Matthews-Weddington Road. And that's within the town of Stallings, kind of right here, Stallings, Weddington, and Indian Trails all kind of intermatched in that whole area. This is the town of Stallings. And if you've ever driven through that intersection, that's a mess in the morning, particularly in the afternoon as well. But people trying to make a left turn off of Chestnut, there's no signal there, it's just a stop control, there's only 2 lanes wide in both directions, there's no turn lane off of Matthews-Weddington Road. And what you can see in the document that I gave you, the bottom is the recommended improvement there is to construct a roundabout. And, roundabouts are kind of the thing to do these days. DOT really likes roundabouts, and they were actually the one that submitted this project for consideration in this last call for projects. But roundabouts have been proven to reduce, accident data by something on the order of 70%. I mean, they're very safe. Even if you don't like them, they're very safe intersections, and the accidents that you do have are very minor because everybody's slowing down to get through the intersection, so you just have little bumps here and there. So they do work well. So we've used that in several locations. And this one, since it's fairly high volumes on this intersection, they're suggesting that you buy a right of way to make it a dual lane roundabout in the future. But even in the interim, you would what they're calling slip lanes. If you look at that, the bottom. Let me try to find it. It's not going to be right after this.
Back up.
That was it. I went past. All right. The what's called slip lanes on that south side, the Chestnut Lane access. Basically, what that is just an exclusive right turn that takes you on to Matthews-Weddington Road, or if you're coming, I guess from the south on Matthews-Weddington Road or the west, you can do exclusive right turn down on Chestnut Lane. So that configuration right there would work very well in the short term. In the long term, it actually breaks down again, and you'll need to widen it to dual lanes. But that would go a long way in improving that particular intersection. There's constraints there. Basically, there's some power lines in the area. I know there's some development being proposed on the north side of Matthews-Weddington Road. Or I guess that's really the west side of Matthews-Weddington Road. There's a substation being proposed there, and there's also the development that Stallings is talking to some folks about. Have looked at trying to signalize that intersection, but we're suggesting that they go towards this kind of a solution. Any questions about anyone, just stop me as I go along, but I think this would be a really good project.
The only question I have on that one is, if you're doing that right dedicated turn, you're eventually will have to merge back in.
Right.
How does that work with morning traffic that's just flowing, left to right on the screen? When you have to merge back in, otherwise you're going into St. John's Restaurant there.
It's, you gotta give it a little room to make that merging movement. That will be a conflict. It'll work a whole lot better than it does right now, but there could be some delays as a result of that in the peak hours. But that'll work a whole lot better than if it was not a slip lane and you basically had to do that right at the end at the roundabout itself. So there will be more backup on Chestnut and or Matthews-Weddington as a result. You see, this project is estimated at $1.8 million. We did some very, very conservative estimates on these projects. Again, these are 30,000 feet kind of things because one, the funds we used, you can only do planning activities with those funds. You can't do design work. They don't let you. And you probably should. You got to get the planning stuff out of the way first before you move into design anyway. But this took some assumptions on how much right of way we needed, how much easements would be after that, and there's there's some pretty straightforward formulas to do that. And again, we were very conservative, probably could do this for less money, but this is what the estimate we're gonna put forward when we submit the project. Because one thing you wanna make sure that when you submit a project, you're gonna be responsible for bringing it in, whether you do it with your own staff or a consultant that you hire. If you don't meet that, you know, if you have some cost overruns, you're probably gonna have to eat them yourself. There's not gonna be money to go back and get more, typically. So you wanna make sure you got a good estimate, and that's what we're trying to do. Next project's a pretty easy one, really. Let me get up to McNeely Road at Highway 75, down in Mineral Springs. It's the T intersection. There was a fatality here. I think was kind of one of the reasons it kind of made the list. And there's been several accidents at this location. One of the reasons is when you're coming from Waxhaw going towards McNeely Road, you got a little crest in the road. And so if someone's there making a left turn on McNeely, or somebody's trying to come off McNeely to make a left turn on Highway 75, the sight distance is kind of poor because you're going about 55 at that point in time. Some very straightforward kind of improvements are needed at that location. When we get down there.
Yep.
What we've suggested here basically is you have a left turn lane obviously coming off of Highway 75 to get those folks out of the through lane, so I think the problem there was rear end collisions. So and the left turn lane is very long because of that sight distance issue. So we've got 580 feet left turn lane, which you don't need it to stack cars, you just need it in order to see somebody and get them out of by the time they decelerate and get down to their turn. Also adding a left turn lane and a right turn lane combo coming off of McNeely. So with those two improvements, and basically on the east side of 75, it's just transitioning back to 2 lanes is all that is. Fairly straightforward project.
How does that improve the left off McNeely?
Basically, it allows you to see. It allows the folks who are get this one right. When you're coming over the crest on 75, you'll have a little more space to see because of the widening that occurs there. The main improvement here is it's helping the folks that are stopping to turn left onto McNeely is really the real help. And the left turn and the right turn off of McNeely is more of it helps the right turn just to provide a slip for them to get past the folks who are trying to make a left. So that's almost an afterthought on the improvements. Again, you can see the cost of this project is only $450,000, so it's a fairly inexpensive improvement that again is designed to alleviate the crash problem there and actually the fatality that occurred there in the last couple of years. I think that's probably one of the least expensive projects we've got. All right, let's see right here. Next project's going to be in between Harvin and Waxhaw. Bonds Grove Road. I think that's the name of this. When you were asking earlier, John, I think, and you guys have done a lot of work on that already in that area. We've got a couple of alignments, a couple of potential improvements for this particular location. And most of you know Highway 16 is just full of cars. And the problem is you have on Bonds Grove, as you do at Great Bower, you don't have a signal, so you don't have a left turn lane, so anybody trying to make a left on 16 on the Great Bower or onto Bonds Grove, or vice versa. They gotta wait until somebody lets them out for the most part, unless it's off peak hour. So we got several, or a couple different improvements proposed there. Now, this section of road is actually scheduled for widening, but it's not gonna happen for, I think it's scheduled for like 22 or something, like 23 if I remember right. It's a ways out. It actually will get reprioritized in this state, in this version of the TIP, because it was so far out, they haven't been reprioritized, that's just what they do. My guess is it will remain in the TIP, but by the time they do environmental documents and so forth, it's gonna be 22, 23 before it actually gets built. So these improvements are designed really just to help the interim for the most part. That's the improvement. All right, I think the first idea, both ideas is to signalize this intersection. As you can see, you're adding left turn lanes on the north approach of Highway 16. You have a left turn lane and a right turn lane on the Bonds Grove, and you're adding a right turn only lane coming south on 16. So those kind of improvements, if you're going through there, that would go a long way in improving in the short term anyway. And again, hopefully trying to set this up at least in a way that most of it wouldn't get thrown away once the overall widening got done. I think there's get this thing on the right. Okay, now I know what Waxaw has looked at in Marvin as well is on this alignment, it's showing that basically you're moving Bonds Grove a little bit to the north. And the reason that is because it's lining up with land that's probably going to be developed. So if that land gets developed, you want to make sure that it has an intersection that's aligned with Bonds Grove. And it really can't align with Bonds Grove on its current alignment. So the other improvement the other suggestion is if you want to do it right, you go over, basically realign Bonds Grove a little bit to the north of its current location, and then put the improvements in there. You wouldn't build on that east side of 16 until development occurred, and they would be required to do that construction. But you could make all the other improvements if you care to. You can see this was done by a different consultant. You guys have been used Kimley Horn on a lot of the work done there.
There'll be a signal here, right?
There'd be a signal at that as well. This was really just to show the idea for long term, what you'd really like to do there. And that would be part of the major widening as well. We would look to the DOT to actually, if this hadn't been done by that time, that they would actually relocate this section as well.
Just out of curiosity, have they ever thought about any like those Michigan lefts or anything at this intersection?
They'll look at that when they do the environmental document for the whole section of 16. They're doing a lot of that on Highway 84 as part of that project, and they do work well. There's trade-offs like everything. There's some folks it hurts, and some folks it helps. The major movement that they're trying to serve, 84, it helps. But whether they're going to do it on here or not, they haven't. This is, it's a relatively low-cost project. The way I showed you in the slide before, anyway. This is the one we estimated, and we got that just a little bit under $1 million for right-of-way and construction. Now the realignment, is a little bit different because there's a whole lot more right-of-way incurred there. I think there's some other things involved, but it jumps it to about $2.5 million. So it's a significant change in the scope. This one will be an easy one because I don't think it's on your handout, but it's another intersection we looked at was Clance Road and 218. There were issues out there as well. I think there might have been a fatality there. There might have been a couple of fatalities there actually a while back. And we were in the middle of looking at this. We discovered that DOT had already made plans, actually have already funded some improvements at that location, so we didn't make any other recommendations other than take credit for them funding the project, so. Let's go to the next one.
So hanging fruit, right?
Right. Other projects that you'll see, that you saw earlier in the map, there's a series of projects along Old Charlotte Highway within Monroe. This one is just a little bit south of Rocky River Road at basically Carroll Street and Arnold Drive. And the problem you've got there on Old Charlotte Highway is basically it needs to be wide. Right? You got issues with turning movements onto and off of Old Charlotte Highway because it's just 2 lanes wide. There's no turning lanes at these locations. So anytime anybody's turning, you're backing traffic up. And the volumes are getting so heavy on Old Charlotte Highway that it's becoming quite a problem in that location, and as you'll see further down the road as well. Sometimes it doesn't. What we're simply doing here is basically adding a center left turn lane along that section of Old Charlotte Highway, so that we're making some minor improvements at the receiving intersections, Carroll Street and Arnold Drive. But the left turn lane basically is the cause of all the accident problems that there right now. And this section of Old Charlotte Highway is not scheduled to be widened. At this point in time, it's not funded. The funding of Old Charlotte Highway is from basically Mecklenburg County down to Sun Valley at this point. And that's as far as the funding is going. So my guess is the next thing that would get funded on Old Charlotte Highway would be coming from Monroe North, but at this point they have not received funding.
What does it mean when you say levels of service will not exhibit significant improvement as a result of the proposed enhancements? Because the volumes are representative of those on Carroll Street, which carries less traffic than Old Charlotte. And then the same thing with the next one on John Moore Road. So level of service will not exhibit significant improvement as the proposed enhancements. Is that?
The way the calculations are done is really how this boils down to. In a situation like this where you got a T intersection, no traffic signals, and the problem basically is people trying to turn left and it's just backing everybody up. And there have been some accident history here as well. That the level of service, which is more about moving traffic through, it just doesn't affect the numbers that much, but it will affect the safety of the intersection. The numbers have more to do with capacity as opposed to safety.
Okay.
That's kind of what that is. Not incredible amount of money, but $700,000. But when there's basically 3 of these, 2 of them kind of back to back, and one a little bit further down. But you'll see. I think this is the next one, John Moore Road, Old Charlotte Highway. Yeah, it's going to be the same kind of thing. We're looking at, we've got quite a bit of non-residential right in that area. There are no turn lanes into much of that. Definitely not to John Moore Road, and actually was a fatality on John Moore. So one of the reasons we looked at it, and Monroe really wanted us to, because they wanted to submit it as a project. So again, I think what we're looking at here is really center left turn lanes to allow more movement in and out of the commercial area through there. That's Carroll Street. This is John Moore. Again, kind of carrying that same cross section as you saw before. A little more costly, mainly because it's commercial property and it's a little more linked to it. Again, there's no signalization here that we're talking about, but just adding a lot of pavement. We'll get to the other section on here a little bit later, but the next one's going to be Wesley Chapel and Rogers Road. And that's a problematic intersection as well. There are turn lanes on, I think, every approach to that intersection right now. But what you've got is, you just got the traffic volumes that are getting over the capacity of what it can handle. Plus, you've got problems associated with the schools, when school's in session, and we've got some suggestions to remedy that as well. I think Indian Trail is doing some sidewalk improvements on Rogers, if I remember correctly. I think Adam was part of this group as well. Kind of helped us in this particular project. Go down to where the improvements are. We've got the kind of a short-term and long-term improvement for this location as well. Okay. This is more of the short-term improvement. It's really dealing with the intersection of Rogers specifically, and doesn't really take into account so much what's going on a little bit more to the east of that towards the schools. But here what we're doing is we're adding a right turn lane as you're approaching Rogers Road, as well as, so you can keep the through lane and the left turn lane on the, it's called Rogers Road on that side of Wesley Chapel or not, but on the extension of Rogers to the north and to the west. And those improvements, by the time you do the tapers and all that, it's quite a bit of an improvement in that area, and it's a relatively, it's not that costly, but it's quite improvement in the level of service in the short term for the project. In the long term, as you can see in these little sheets, they're talking about 2040 levels of service when you go from one to the other. Halftime, you're not going to see any movement at all when you're talking about looking at 2040 traffic volumes, but I'm more interested in what's going to do, in 2015 or 2018, whenever these things get done. And short-term level service would improve that dramatically. The kind of the second phase, and you can do this all at one time as well, but it's trying to break these into kind of manageable projects, will be to make some improvements up more to the east on Wesley Chapel Road towards Sun Valley Middle School. Basically, you got a problem there right now with cars just lining up on the road and blocking everything during, either in the afternoon or in the morning. So you've got a almost 2,000-foot right turn only lane for people basically just to stop.
Those buses turn
Get into
left
school
out of
is what
here.
that's for. And it's quite a improvement to serve the school, but basically it would, it's what it would take to get folks to be able to bypass everybody that's stopping and trying to get in and out of the school at that point in time. So basically this improvement is to add that right turn lane, and dual left turn lanes as you're coming off of Wesley Chapel Road onto Rogers Road, and then some improvements on Rogers Road to receive those dual lefts and to take them back down into 2 lanes as you get further down the road. So a little more costly project here because you're adding a lot of pavement. It's a pretty lengthy project, a lot more right of way. So it's about a $3.5 million improvement here. I know Indian Trail's going to be looking at Wesley Chapel Road in some more detail, I think, in a study this year as well. So they'll be taking this into consideration. I don't think this was one of the projects that were submitted in this go-around in the call for projects, but maybe in the next one. Okay. Let me just go down. I think I just go to the recommended improvement. This is a project in Wingate, Wilson Street, North Main Street, just north of basically the railroad. Wingate University, the edge of Wingate University. There were some, basically some pedestrian fatalities, or was a pedestrian fatality at this particular intersection. If you've been through there at all, it's a little difficult as far as being able to see because of buildings being so close to the road. But in addition, North Main Street is it's a pretty through shot. People tend to speed a little bit on that road. There are some. There's no stop signs. There's a lot of caution signs and that sort of thing. But it's a state-maintained road, and we made some suggestions for additional sidewalk improvements in this area. There wasn't a whole lot you could do to the intersection that would really make a difference. And to cure that fatality, and the level of service isn't really that bad. So we're making just some pedestrian improvements. We also suggested to the town of Wingate that they seek maintenance of this particular road from the state of North Carolina, because in doing that, they can implement traffic calming techniques whenever they want. They can put in either speed humps or additional stop signs or other traffic calming measures to slow that traffic down that's on Main Street, because obviously there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in and around Wingate University. There's a few restaurants and things right down there at this intersection that they're going to. So, you know, relatively, what we were suggesting is a relatively low cost improvement, and with adding sidewalks and pedestrian facilities at that location. But I think probably more importantly would be for them to pursue control of the road. Just I think it would calm the traffic down a lot. It would be a lot more appropriate at a university location. And we've told them that, so. All right. Potter and Wesley Chapel, one of my favorite intersections. This intersection is notorious both in the morning and in the afternoon. In the morning, you'll have, and the afternoon too, you have folks who want to turn left because they're trying to get down towards the employment areas off of Villine and Airport area. And there's only 2 lanes coming up, or 1 lane coming up on Potter Road, and so you're backing everybody up, you know, for a mile, and it's even worse in the PM as people are trying to go home. And Wesley Chapel Road carries a lot of traffic, so there's not a lot of gaps to, you know, people make that left turn, and everybody else can keep moving. So many times the sheriff's out there with the deputy directing traffic. I often wondered whether, I never knew who was doing that, because they just seemed to show up. I don't know if his wife actually came to intersect a certain time of day and he was helping her out, or what was going on, because you never knew when he was going to be there. But that's just a little editorial comment there. Okay, a little bit different orientation, but again, this is similar to what we suggested on Chestnut and Matthews Weddington Road, and this is a roundabout with right-of-way big enough to make a dual lane in the future, with slip lanes on the approach from Potter to I think it's actually called Potter there. Potter to Potter.
It changes to Potter on the right side.
Yeah.
But anyway, this really works well, and particularly in the short term. It provides for that left turn, and it gets folks out of the way. The problem that this may create is more congestion at 84, because basically you'll get a lot of backup from that intersection as well, just because of the amount of traffic going, on Potter and Wesley Chapel, that it just can't process it enough. And the green is always going to be favoring 84 at this location. So you'll facilitate good movement through this intersection. If folks turn left, they'll really love it. If folks turn right, they end up having to back up even more than they do now. So we've got another improvement. I don't know if it's going to be the next one on your list or not, but we've got another improvement that can go with this hand in hand at the intersection of 84 and Potter Road. So keep that in mind. This isn't an inexpensive project, $2.5 million. It was actually proposed by DOT in this last call for projects, and I was hoping it would get funded, but it's still on the list, and it remains unfunded at this time. DOT was looking at a little bit smaller version of it. They wouldn't do the slip lanes, they would do just a simple roundabout at this location. And their analysis says it would work okay, and they're basically just trying to do it as cheaply as they can. Satisfy the initial problems.
I can see that with the Airport Road roundabout. I mean, that's a heavy volume road as well, and that seems to work pretty good.
Yeah, it does work well. This would work, this works better, this has less conflict, but,
Mhm.
their analysis seems to think that it would work. And they're looking at a little shorter time frame than we were, so. Okay. Back over to Weddington. This was another project I really pushed hard for. It's a real simple fix, but it's a problem intersection. Ennis Road at Highway 16. Again, you got all the tremendous volumes that you have on Providence Road. One guy wants to take a left on Ennis, and it's backed up all the way to Gray Road and beyond. So, obviously a pretty easy fix here. Matter of fact, I would suggest that Weddington might even take it on themselves. So we would work on that, Chris. You know, right away wouldn't be that big a deal. You'd want a good left, you know, probably a fairly lengthy left turn lane off of Highway 16 onto Ennis Road. But it's one of those kind of things, and this section actually will be widened a little bit sooner than others. But this would be a project that you can get some benefit out of, and you could actually do this one, I think, fairly quickly. What that looks like. So basically, you got a 700-foot left turn lane off of 16, and that's really all you're doing. I mean, it's a long left turn lane, but you got a lot of folks wanting to take a left there, and it really frees up more than that. Frees up the folks who are trying to go south on Highway 16. I know one of the engineers on the consultant team lives out that way, and she really was pushing for this one.
My sister would like that as well. And the people behind me when I take a turn off of 16 onto Ennis to cut over to Newtown.
And we've got a
I would like it 'cause I sit in that
$400,000
traffic at night.
cost estimate on here, which I think is probably, I know it's conservative. I mean, really, I think that's something that, this is the kind of project and the size of the project that you could probably get the state to participate in. It would be one where I think if the town of Wayington would put up more than just a 20% match, you could probably get something like this done pretty quickly.
When you say pretty quickly, I mean, I know you can't hold it to it, but I mean, now you're talking,
I'm talking a couple of years.
okay.
Because I don't see that this is, it wouldn't even be a categorical exclusion on an environmental document. It'd probably be, what people call it, but it's basically like a checklist thing. That's, environmental documents are what take forever.
Right.
In this situation, you might even be able to get by without buying any right of way, but you might have to buy some easements for temporary construction kind of easements. So,
Mhm.
so that again takes a long time. So if you don't have much of that, you can move pretty quickly. And the rest of it's just putting down some pavement and marking. So it should be a project that could go pretty quickly. And I don't know off the top of my head who the property owner there is, but they probably would participate, would be my guess.
Yeah, they do that drum
From
strong. Thank you.
I can give you that land, because I doubt there'd be very much of it. The next one's where let's just go back to that. Yeah, the next one what I mentioned earlier, this is the improvement at Highway 84 and Potter Road. Did I get that right? Yeah. West of Chapel Road. So when you do the improvements, especially if you did the improvements up at Potter Road, and even if you did, you needed some improvements here because we've got some capacity issues just because of sheer volume on the road. There are left turn lanes on every approach, but we're suggesting some improvements, some dual lefts as you're coming off of Highway 84. And if you wanted to turn and go east on Potter or north, whatever that direction was, I guess that's north there. You got some improvements in lengthening left turn storage coming off of Potter Road, and just basic improvements on every approach to that particular intersection. Somewhat expensive project just because you got some right of way involved here. You got a little bit of pavement as well. there, we put in another one in our document, I think I've got it on here, I'll just show it to you. One of the issues was the intersection at Marvin and Newtown Road. Marvin's really been complaining about that one, it is a problem. And there had been some designs identified for it, that's why we didn't do an analysis on it, but what we did as part of this document, and we did do some of the work that the town of Waxhaw did as well. We included some design work and, that was done, or some planning work that was done by those towns in this document, so that it would kind of be one source of, for intersection improvements that need to be done. This is it, and a roundabout that's being proposed, by the state and by the town of Marvin in that location, at Marvin and Newtown Road. They didn't do as much analysis, I don't think, on that as we did, but the state has been looking to get that funded for some time. And that was submitted as part of that last, rollout projects, but it, again, it didn't get funded, it remained in the list for potential projects, so. I went through those things fairly quickly, I think I got through most all of them. Again, our whole purpose of this was that we'd have more or less an inventory of projects that we could submit for funding when those opportunities become available. For example, that last call for projects, we were about halfway through this thing when that call for project came out. So, we kind of knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't have a lot of some of the detail that you need to submit for justifications and so forth for those projects to make them score better in the analysis. So I think we're in a good position when the next call for projects comes, and as we go to lobby the state to fund improvements. One other thing is, just, I don't know if y'all are familiar with this or not, or even care, but a couple of years ago, the state went to what's called STI legislation. It's Strategic Transportation Initiatives, and that changed the whole way the state funds transportation project. I mean, wholesale. And what it did was take it kind of out of the political realm. Hey, how about my project, but it kind of got it done that way. Got it to really number driven. And when they did that, a couple things happened. One is they took all the money and put it in this STI. So the money that the divisions had, like Division 10 we're in, they'd always have a chunk of change that they could go out. Well, shoot, there's a bunch of problems here. Newtown and Marvin, we need to put in a traffic circle. So they'd have money to do something like that. They don't have any money to do that now. So what we were looking at here was to try to come up with some projects so that we could get the state to partner with us, the divisions, to go after some of those things like DA money and things like that to get it funded. And all the state would have to put in would be 50%. And they can do that. They just don't have full funding. And the other projects, and the other thing STI did, it doesn't really look at little projects very well. It doesn't really look at intersection kind of improvements. And I'm a believer that intersections groups can go a long way. I think you can get a lot of capacity out of making these improvements as opposed to spending millions and millions on widening a major facility. Not that you don't need to do that, but you get a big bang for your buck on making turn lanes and things like that. So that's why we've advocated doing this project, and that's why hopefully we can use the product for it. That's all I have for you. But any questions or any comments you have?
I got a question. You talked about Highway 16, and that whether you start at the north, you start south, say Waxhaw, then it affects Marvin, it affects Weddington, right on the shore. The question I've got is, why don't they look at these as one project and not single them out by town?
Well, if I understand what you're saying, for what we're doing, they are singled out by municipalities because that's kind of how they can get funded. When the state's looking at widening 16, they don't really care whether it's in a town or not. Probably use poor words there, but to them, they're just looking at a facility, their facility that they own, and what the capacity is, what it's doing, and how they can improve it. So, you know, that's a project that they're behind and they want to see done, whether it's in one town or a lot of towns. But when you're looking at individual projects, the only reason we're identifying kind of where they are and what they are is because the kind of money that you usually get to fund those kind of things either require matches from whatever municipality it's in, or at least some advocating for those projects by that municipality. So, if that does that kind of answer you or
Well,
what you were saying?
I know that there was a recent meeting of the Charlotte Transportation, and they were talking about all this. It's just individual project, and it's just not enough money to worry about, or something along that line. But yet, if you take all of them together, there's quite a bunch of money there. If you take the stretch of highway that needs to be fixed.
Well, I think that's the key to your answer. We dealt with that with Monroe Road. The problem that the MPO has is that there's a limited amount of funds. The way that the STI program sort of allocates funds, based on highways, regional projects, and then local projects. And so it's really competitive, you know, when you start talking about these regional type projects. The local projects don't get a lot of money. They get a small amount. And so what ends up happening is the DOT is looking at how can we fund a project, and if we make it too big, it won't get funded. There's so much money that it takes to finish an entire section of roadway that they'll never be able to get it funded. So what they do is they break it up into components in an effort to see if they can get funding to do this segment, and then maybe in a couple, 2-3 years do this segment. Because if they try to do all segments at once, it costs so much, they can't get enough to do it. And that's what we ran into with Monroe Road. That's why it doesn't go past Sun Valley right now. It basically started in Mecklenburg County, came into Stallings, went through Indian Trail, and sort of stopped at Sun Valley because it was so expensive. If we put it as one project, it'd never get funded.
That's a good example of a project that the STI about it, like Brian was saying, about it, it's a 3 tiers. There's what's called a statewide tier, and that's basically all interstates. The only facility we have that's a statewide facility is 74. All the interstates are on statewide, and that's 40% of all the money that's in that STI pot. 30% of the money is for regional roads, and those are primarily numbered roads like Highway 16. You would think Ocean Highway would be a regional road. It's not. It's a division road, and that's 30% of the money as well. So, and there's a whole lot more division roads than there are regional roads. So that project got funded piecemeal. It got some division money. It got a lot of this DA money. It got $20 million of the DA money that Gil put on that they had control of. And that was a big deal. And also got a bunch of money from Indian Trail. Indian Trail put $10 million towards that project. So that's how it got funded as far as it got funded. It was a combination of funds and a lot of finagling, really. That's a good example of how that kind of thing gets done.
So it really boils down to how costly is the project. If it's too costly, they try to break it up into components to see if they can at least fund portions of it, and then just keep working on it as they go.
The reason I ask that is because if you look at Charlotte, it's the 17th largest city right now in the U.S. It's the 6th fastest growing city in the U.S. And that spillover is into Union County
Sure.
and the towns around Union County. And so with that, it would say, logic tells me that there ought to be someone somewhere that recognizes, okay, you know, we've got this happening. This, in 5 years, it's going to be a mess. In 10 years, a disaster. And it's like some of these intersections, you know, we putting off, we gotta wait and count deaths, and I'm not being sarcastic,
No.
but I'm trying to digest this on the political aspect of it. And I'm having a time with it, because it does not make sense to me.
Well, I think the governor has tried in his, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, in his methodology to help this region, whereas the previous system did not help this region very much.
Okay.
I think the current system helps. There's a little more money that comes our way, but even then, there's still so many needs that, you know, we kind of, Union County sort of at the bottom of the barrel. You know, we get, they throw us some bones every once in a while, but,
I'll put it a little bit differently. The STI, what it did was, like statewide projects are purely data driven. There is no input other than we're gonna nominate a project and see how it scores. So it gets all fed all this stuff and these numbers pop out, and that's how it gets funded. And those things are weighed heavily on traffic volumes, traffic congestion, economic development opportunity. There's, I don't know what kind of formulas they got in there, but they're really geared towards urban areas. So the problem with STI and the good thing about it, Charlotte got a lot of projects. We got a lot of money out of it at the last TIP because of that, because it's an urban area, because it's the fastest growing, all that kind of stuff. When you get outside of Charlotte, you got some of the same problems, but they're not at the same scale. So it's really hard to compete in a numerical sense with congestion and problems and volumes that are going on in Charlotte when you're in Union County. So when you get down to the regional and the division projects, there are some input by the MPO, but again, it's only 50% for division and it's 30% for regional. So they've taken the politics out of picking those roads, which kind of hurts the rural areas. And that's it. Trying to find that happy medium. That's kind of where they're at right now.
Thank you. Is there any more questions or anything? Concerns of anybody?
Nope.
Any comments?
Thanks, Joe.
Yes. Great presentation. Thanks to your team that put this together, and Kimley Horn. We appreciate the thoroughness of it. Good job.
This was actually RS&H. Kimley Horn did the project for Marvin there, and they've done a lot of work in Waxhaw. RS&H is a southern company we use. But anyway, we think this is going to be a good document, and we think we can get something out of it. So we're about that close already to get some things funded, but it's not there yet.
Don't put the pressure on the towns.
I guess we could make one closing comment, though.
Developers.
I'm all for putting the pressure on the developers to pony up some money for the
And that's why
impacts
we
they're
have
creating.
Traffic is because of development, all the development that's going on.
absolutely. Development drives traffic.
So the developers should have a pot and they just keep putting money into it to make these
Well,
changes.
I think if you provide enough incentive for them to put the money in the pot, they'll put the money in the pot to get their developments built.
Yeah. I had an idea on
Lock
this.
Haven.
I don't know what you guys think about this, but we could ask Chris to write that check for $410,000. And then it would be the Dugan Ennis Road.
Right.
Ennis Dugan. What do you think about that, guys?
Yeah.
By the way, change the name, I think we could.
Yeah, I think,
You got the naming rights, man, for
You don't-
under $500,000.
you don't mind third-party out-of-state cross-endorsed checks? I'll sign one right now.
Okay,
Now,
thanks,
they
Joe.
put in
Appreciate
a
it.
left turn lane on Lock Haven,
Really?
going down into Lock Haven, because they put a development down there.
I know that,
was one of the- one of the stipulations.
Whittington has stepped up their traffic impact analysis requirements for development, so.
Their planner's been, talking to Joe, on.
So they're doing a good job of getting, squeezing some improvements out of developers as things happen. They're doing a much better job.
I think that's what we need to
I
do.
want to say this, because I want, people need to understand that, I think the development community certainly plays a role in there. But understand that a new developer coming in didn't create what's happened in the past. And you can't expect one person to fix all the woes that have been come about because of other decisions.
Right.
And unfortunately, we kind of have that mindset, we want to kill this goose, even though the other goose made all the problem, we want to kill this one. You know, and we've got to have a balance there, that the developer's going to be responsible for their impact, but not necessarily fixing all the woes that we've already created because of decisions that we made, so.
I agree,
there's a
but
balance.
you got to start somewhere. I mean, we, you know, and it's, I get that we got a whole bunch of woes, but you gotta start creating that pot to build from to, you know.
So I said, if they have a chip away, they just keep putting into a pot.
Pat, we'll get you a cashier's check.
All right.
No problem.
All right.
What do we say?
Brian?
I don't have a report, but I do want to make sure the board knows that we are losing Joe. He is going to a private firm. It's actually his last day is this Friday. We're going to miss him dearly. Joe's going on to work with Gresham Smith and Partners. It's a company, I think, out of Tennessee, but they've got trying to get a presence here in the Charlotte area, and Joe's going to be doing some transportation work for them, and we're going to miss him dearly, but certainly wish him all the best.
Congratulations.
Wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that, so you could wish him the best on that as well. So you got to see him for his final tour here.
You can believe they may become, lethal price.
Right. How many more meetings do you have at night between now and Friday?
Not an easy meeting,
Yeah, there you go.
We wish you
That's all
the
I have.
best.
I don't have anything
That's what
else.
you think.
Any other comments? Okay, any comments from the board?
Just say, wish you the very best of luck, Joe. You know, the interaction that I've had with you, I've really appreciated it. Learned a lot from you on especially the transportation end of things. So I wish you the best of luck and, you know, happy planning.
With that, I'd like to thank the board that attended tonight. Appreciate all your comments and support. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Roger, thank you. Do we have a second? Patrick, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.